Hi, I'm Neil Nobel, editor-at-large of the Prickly Pear, and welcome to the Cactus Patch. Our guest this morning is Professor Larry Schweikert. Larry, welcome. Good to see you this morning.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Um, if I was to describe you as a prolific author, I think that would be an understatement. You have published upwards of what? How many? 20 books?
Depending on how you count, I mean, on the back of my new autobiography called The Rhythm of History, we decided to take a shot at me with every single thing I've ever published, including encyclopedia, articles, ghost-written books, privately written books, and I think the total is over 30 books and probably 50 or 60 articles.
Well, your most well-known probably is the one that I see displayed behind you, that it's Patriots History of the United States. I have in my hands the 10th edition. You're showing the 15th. How many editions are we at now?
We're at the 15th edition, and later this summer, God willing, I'm going to publish online on the wildworldofhistory.com a 20th anniversary edition, which basically will be one full new chapter from 2018 to 2023. And then I've gone back along with Mike Allen. We made some revisions to a few earlier places. Most notably, we made some real additions that would get cut out of a paper copy of the book. But now, as you read through, it'll say, go to page 166 for this insertion. Then we give you 3 or 4 pages of new material, new sources that we found or whatnot. So I'm hoping that will be out on the web here by the end of the summer, and it will be free.
Well, one of the most important things you've done is provide at least some antidote to the Howard Zinn view of history, which so permeates our school system. And that happens to be on my mind this morning because of the editorial in the Wall Street Journal the other day about the death threats against Dennis Prager and the faculty's position against free speech at our own Arizona State University. And you and I both know this has been going on for years within the universities. And is there any way really that legislators can fix this?
You know, I remember in 1968 or 9 taking a philosophy class from the very controversial Morris Starsky,
I took
who
one
was
as well.
Tremendously opposed to the Vietnam War, but he was urging his students to don't come to class, go out and protest. So everybody did. Nobody went to his class, and then he's in there wondering, why is nobody in my class anymore? It's sort of like the old Abby Hoffman thing, steal this book,
Yep.
right? And when everybody stole the book, he couldn't understand why he wasn't getting any money from book sales. But on a more serious note, it has been going on for a long time. The left, more or less, got control of the universities top to bottom sometime in the 1980s. And once they got majorities or near majorities in departments, then they began to exclude anyone who wasn't a radical leftist from their hiring. Anybody who didn't toe the line of race, class, gender in any discipline, I don't care if it's home ec or wrestling, they were starting to put this in I mean, you laugh, but it's true. It was put in university-wide through, you know, as a rule, just kind of an aside, conservatives hate meetings. Conservatives by nature are individually driven. They don't want to waste time chatting about garbage. They're doers. They're not talkers. And as a result, the less successful people who couldn't publish, who couldn't write their way out of a paper bag, ended up on all the committees that were controlling the universities. That's partly our fault. And I'll admit, I didn't want to serve on any of these things at all. I managed to never serve on a university-wide committee except for one that gave away a prize. Other than that, somehow I managed to avoid service, which is one reason I was able to publish so much, as I worked on writing, not on redefining the university. But my view was I wasn't going to make a difference. I was going to be outvoted 10-1 or 6-1 or whatever it was. So as a result, by the 80s, the far leftists got in control of all of these universities. Studies done starting in the 80s showed that any department would have somewhere between, say it's a department of 20, you have 18 or 19 liberals and one registered Republican who probably wasn't very conservative, probably was more of a rhino, right? So some places like University of Colorado, I remember reading a study in the late 80s where it was 100 to 1 in the political science, economics, and history departments. And usually the hard sciences held out a little bit longer, the business schools held out a little bit longer, but even those had to give way when you began to get top-down administrative directives on diversity and equity and inclusion and this kind of stuff. You couldn't resist it. And so they eventually came along, which is why you had so many scientists going along with the China virus vaxes that were never tested and say, oh yeah, these are safe and reliable, as young people are dropping dead right and left. So short answer, there is nothing a state legislature can do to reclaim control of the universities.
Boy, that's discouraging. It's like we're paying for our own destruction.
You need to just metaphorically burn them down. You need to get rid of them entirely. There's a good study I have in my today's news. If people go to uncoverdc.com, that's uncoverdc.com, 5 days a week, I read the top 20 to 40 headlines and make a snarky comment about things. And I try to find stories that not everybody will find. And there's a good story in my today's news today, June 22nd, that has to do with the demise of universities in the post-pandemic era, and they've never recovered. They're down about 4%, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot. And you start getting that number down to about where only 20% of Americans are going to college, then you've got a chance. So one of the best things we can do is discourage people from going to college at all. Sounds crazy, but yeah.
That's a shame. Well, that aside, very important issue. I want to talk about your book, Patriot's History. I know you also have become a filmmaker. You made a great film, Rock the Wall, which was on PBS. And you've got some plans to make history more accessible to the general public. You want to tell us a little bit about that project?
Well, starting in the maybe 2005 or 6, just a couple of years after this book appeared, I began trying to turn it into a video version. And I was inspired mostly at that time by Milton Friedman's old PBS series called Free to Choose, yes, which I thought was superb. And I would show parts of that to my classes over the years. But within a year or so, it became very clear to me that while video is the right way to reach young people, the concept of the Friedman Free to Choose series was absolutely the wrong way. That you needed something more exciting, more captivating, less intellectual at first. And so I came up with a 6 to 8 part miniseries along the lines of John Adams, Sons of Liberty, The Chosen, but with a key caveat that it would be capable of being edited into 4-minute clips, such as Prager University videos. Mm-hmm. Because I did 2 of these Prager University videos, and at the time, I haven't checked recently, I should check, but at the time, each one had over 1 million views. This is many years ago. So I'm guessing that today they must have had 3 or 4 million views. So you talk to somebody like the people from Koch brothers, who I spoke with about 4 years ago, trying to turn this into a video series. And their answer is always, well, we don't do video. Heritage, we don't do video. AEI, well, we don't do video. Whoever, Young Americans, well, we don't do video. And they publish these white papers, and they have panel discussions, and they'll send Ben Shapiro to Arizona State, where he's going to get 300 people to turn out amidst huge protests, of which only 100 of the people in the auditorium will actually be persuadable, and 200 are going to be already on his side, versus 1 million views for a 4-minute video. So where's your best use of money? And Koch brothers, literally the vice president for education, said, well, I know, but we don't do video. And I said, do you understand that in a few years, somebody like Ben Shapiro won't even be allowed on a university campus? He goes, yes, we discuss that. We understand, but we don't do video. I mean, it's the definition of insanity. So one of our goals in making Patriots History, the video series, is to make it in such a way that we can cut it into 4-minute shorts and send it out via social media, because the kids will watch 4-minute shorts. They watch everything. They aren't closed-minded. They'll watch almost anything. And if you engage them in a 4-minute show, they'll watch a 15-minute show. And if you engage them in a 15-minute show, then they'll watch the hour series. They'll watch the whole series. I know this from my son and his friends, and how they do things and how they watch stuff. So we've had enormous lack of success in getting big conservative funders to get involved in this project. The total cost of the project is probably $2.5 million, which is nothing. That's the budget for Gosnell, made 6 or 7 years ago, all raised by crowdfunding. The Chosen has already raised $12.5 million by crowdfunding. So if we could just get a few conservative people with just a little bit of financial wherewithal to get involved, and the way we're doing this is buy Larry a coffee. Watch the video trailer. It's an amazing trailer. You will cry at the end of it. I had standing ovations from kids at Turning Point USA, at Young America's, high school and college kids, standing ovation for this 4-minute trailer. So I know it's effective. So if you watch the trailer and you like the trailer, buy Larry a coffee. There's a button on Wild World of History to watch the trailer and buy me a coffee. Coffee's $5. Buy me 400 or 500. I have one guy who's committed to buy me $1,000 worth of coffees every month till this gets made. He's not a guy of a lot of means. And he said, I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I don't have a large legacy. This is going to be my legacy. Well, if we could get 50 of those guys or 100 of those guys, we get this made. We can turn this out in video form 6 months from the time I get a full production budget ready. So, folks, if you're out there, buy me a coffee.
Well, I think that's a wonderful idea, and I can also support the idea of videos with Prickly Pear in our circulation. Just looking at our numbers, we have people who watch the YouTube videos about 2.5 times more than they will read an article. And
Sure.
we have an older demographic, but it's just the fact that for many people, they're very busy. They have a limited amount of time. In some cases, they have a limited attention span, particularly younger people. Videos are the way to reach them, and we have to get American history, the true history of America, in front of our younger people, or we're really in trouble, because they're sure not going to get it through the school system. So I commend you on your efforts. So how can people help you? They go to the Wild World of History website.
And there's a button up top. There's a button up top that says, watch the video, buy Larry a coffee. It's just that simple. Or you can write me at larry@wildworldofhistory.com. I'll steer you the right way, especially if you're one of those bigger donors that we're looking for. And these are donations. They're not investments. They're just donations. And but again, this is the way The Chosen was made. This is the way Gosnell was made. This is the way people are getting made stuff that Hollywood won't make anymore. And I can speak to your whole thing about the impact of videos. Even if they aren't watching the video, many people will turn the sound up and listen while they're walking the dog, or while they're doing dishes or cleaning the house, or while they're putting together something in the house that they may need to, or while they're driving. They don't need to be watching the video to be getting the message, because the Bible says faith comes by hearing, not watching. Faith by hearing and hearing and hearing, not having heard once, but hearing and hearing. So it's very important that we get people in the habit of listening to these. And by the way, my Rumble of today's news, with Rumble and some of the other platforms out there, if just every one of my Twitter followers would buy me a single coffee, we'd make this thing tomorrow.
Before we close, since you mentioned Wild World of History, tell us a little bit about that website.
Sure. Well, when I retired from the University of Dayton and moved to Arizona, ever since 2004, people have been asking Mike Allen and me to do two things: to do a younger junior version, and we went through some amazing hoops. We hired 3 different people at different times to try and do a Patriots history junior, to no success. They just couldn't get. One woman had a heart attack in the middle, had to drop out. Long story short, but we couldn't get anybody to do a junior edition. So finally, Mike Allen teamed with another company, Classical Historian, that does elementary school and middle school grades, to do this. The other thing that people were bugging us about is a full curriculum to go with the book. So when I retired in 2016, actually I was pitching the video series to this fellow, and one thing led to another, and he ended up saying, you need to have a website and a curriculum, which we did. And so we ended up going from the video, and he put in a lot of money to set up Wild World of History and to get it running and to create a curriculum. So around about 2017, I developed a full curriculum for U.S. history based on Patriots history of the United States. 22 lessons, 22 chapters in the book, 22 videos. I teach every single lesson in video. And then we decided that the follow-on, especially for a lot of homeschoolers where I began to market this, was they wanted a world history course for part 2. So I developed a world history since 1775 with 15 lessons, they're bigger lessons, and 15 videos tied to my other book, A Patriot's History of the Modern World, Volume 1 and 2. And so I've been hitting the homeschool conventions now for 6 years, and the business has grown every single year. And last year, I was on Steve Bannon's War Room on Thanksgiving, where we talked about Thanksgiving, but he spent a full hour before we did that talking about Patriots history. And the result was that our business doubled last year from the previous year, and we're already ahead of last year this year. So it's a growing history curriculum business. There's tons of free stuff on the site. If you're just out to get supporting materials for high school, you don't need to be a homeschooler. Even if you're teaching in a public school or a charter school, there's so much material on the site that can help you, and you want to take advantage of that.
Well, that's terrific. I really appreciate all the effort you're doing, and I wish you success in doing your own crowdfunding to raise the money for this video series. And thank you, Larry, so
Thanks,
much
Neil.
for your time this morning.
All right.